What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Drive for Show, DFS for Dough here on RotoGrinders. Happy to be back for another week of golf talk. As usual, we've got a major championship next week with the PGA Championship. We've got an elevated event this week with the Wells Fargo Championship. And so plenty of stuff for us to talk about here this Tuesday evening. And of course, to do that, you've got myself, Justin Van Zuiden, that is STL Cardinals 84, and my co-host coming off a big 100-1 outright winner hit last week with Taylor Pendrith. Nice job, Noto. How you doing?
Yeah, doing good. That was quite the sweaty Sunday. I usually get the bad breaks on
You got
Sunday.
A good break this time, my friend.
I got the good breaks. He lipped in that putt on 17, and then, Cole's just kind of fell apart there, green side on 18. So, yeah, I will take it. I think it's my first ever 100-1 or better in golf, maybe. But, yeah, it was fun Sunday.
Well, this year's been the year to get those 100-1 winners, so it was nice to be able to join the party there, I'm sure. And I had some Pendrith in DFS. Didn't have my best week in terms of the total output of my rosters. Had a few too many miscuts in my player pool, but it was a little bit of a weird leaderboard there. Of course, wasn't unexpected with the status of the tournament with the big events coming up. We had a pretty weak field there last week, but certainly doesn't diminish the result of the winner. So good for Pendrith there, getting it done. You mentioned Cole's coming up a little bit short. Alex Noren made a little run there on Sunday as well. Had a pretty solid week, but couldn't quite get over the hump at the end. Obviously, I'm sure the Pendrith win was the big story of your week, but anything else noteworthy in terms of DFS or the leaderboard in general that you noticed last week?
Yeah, nothing crazy for me. Bad week of DFS, but the Pendrith win definitely made up for it. Yeah, I don't know. It's just not that exciting of an event. I don't think I would have watched it on Sunday if I didn't have a sweat going on. It's one of those birdie fests, so you kind of get a wonky leaderboard. So, yeah, nothing.
That course leaves a little bit to be desired as well.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of looked, Dan Bach, our CEO, pointed out, it kind of looks like a municipal golf course out there. Like the fairways had, just dirt everywhere, and had to play lift, clean, in place, which, a lot of people don't like. So, hopefully they can right the ship. I mean, the Byron Nelson used to be one of the bigger events on tour.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be nice to, the event really doesn't have much of a chance kind of with where it lands on the calendar. You got the Masters, and then you got the elevated event this week. You got the PGA next week. So it just becomes, and it follows the team event. So just kind of a natural spot where people take a couple weeks off. And if it stays in that spot, and certainly if it stays in that course, just, doesn't seem like it's going to get a whole lot of traction. But we'll see going forward what that does. But otherwise, not putting a ton of stock into results from a birdie fest. And a lot of the players that played this week did not play last week because you had most of those guys taking a week or two off. So there's not a whole lot of guys in the field that played a week ago outside of Pendrith, who is in the field this week. But I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of additional time going back and recapping it. But anything else from your end before we turn the page?
Now let's get to this week.
All right, so we've got the Wells Fargo Championship this week at Quail Hollow. This tournament it's been contested here most years, but there's a few years you got to make sure you throw out the data because this tournament or this course hosted the President's Cup in 2022. This tournament was canceled during the COVID year. It hosted the PGA Championship like 7 years ago. So you just got to make sure you don't look at course history in those years. Namely, 2022 is the one you're not going to want to look at because that was the President's Cup year and this tournament was held somewhere else. So, but in general, when it's held here, you got a really tough test of golf at Quail Hollow. We've got the elevated event this week, so 69 golfers, no cut, no Scotty Scheffler, and no Ludwig Åberg this week. So the win equity is available for those that want it without those two guys in the field. But before we start digging in, what do you make of the course this week?
Yeah, this is an awesome course, championship level course. You mentioned, it's hosted President's Cup, PGA Championship. I think he's going to host the PGA Championship next year too. It's par 71, over 7,500 yards. So one of the longer courses on the PGA Tour. The last 3 times we've seen it in terms of difficulty, it's been 14th, 5th, and 8th. So definitely a difficult course, one of the most difficult, non-majors that we're going to see each year. Fairways pretty wide and not a lot of forced layups on this course. So you're going to see a lot of drivers. The average driving distance was 304 yards last year, which is one of the longest that we've seen on the PGA Tour. So yeah, driver friendly, bomber friendly. You definitely want to get it out there because these are some long holes, and 76% of approach shots were from at least 150 yards last year. So the longer you can hit it, the better, assuming you don't, hit it too far away from the fairway. And yeah, I'm kind of just looking at, guys that are good off the tee, good with their long irons. I think scrambling will come into play a little bit because these greens are difficult to hit, just given the length of the course. And then I like, we talk about the rabbit hole a little bit. I like looking at the filters that are difficult courses, strong fields, long courses, stuff like that.
Yeah, difficult course angle, I think this week is definitely one to look at. I also like looking at pretty much all the driving metrics this week. You're going to have to bomb it off the tee and keep it in play to give yourself shots at birdies. So good drive percentage, driving distance, things of that nature. It's definitely off the tee game has importance here on this course. Also want to mention before we move along that Noto, you won the snake draft as well last week. So it was just an all-around big week for you. I accidentally clicked Sung J M with my first pick, and then he ended up withdrawing before the tournament started. So my team was pretty much dead before it got rolling. But that's the purpose of the bench spot. But then I also had 4 missed cuts. So wasn't my week. Somehow I beat somebody. But Noto took down snake draft Chris Ayer in second with the other cash spot last week. So, all right. So we've established tough test of golf, stronger field this week. No cut, 69 golfers in the field. So it's, it's not necessarily as deep of a field in terms of number of golfers this week, but should be plenty of guys available to choose from. So let's go ahead and start digging in here. If we look at the top of the pricing scale with Oberg withdrawing, we've only got 3 golfers above 10K. That is Rory at 11.8 on DraftKings, Schauffele at 11.5, and Wyndham Clark at 10.5. So what are you doing with that top trio this week?
Yeah, so I wouldn't call any of them must plays. When Scotty Scheffler plays, it kind of feel good about him finishing the top 5, probably, being in contention as well. But I do like these 3. Rory's won here before, Clark's won here before, Xander's finished T14, T2 here the last 2 times they've held it at Quail Hollow. And Xander and Wyndham both have President's Cup experience too. So I think all 3 are fine. I ended up betting Clark is 16-1. I think for safety, Xander's probably the safest. He's played 9 events this year, 6 top 10s, no weakness in his game. But I do think Rory's sneaky just because, finally got that win in the team event. Maybe that takes a little pressure off his shoulders. He can just play a little more freely going into the major next week. So I like all 3 of them. Ideally, I'd like to get 20% or more of them. How are you approaching it?
Yeah, so I like them a good bit this week as well. All 3 of them. Rory is probably the one I'll have the most exposure to. I mean, he obviously won with Shane Lowry, and it was Rory's performance. Like they weren't. Lowry would not have won that with anybody else that week. Except maybe Scheffler, I guess. But it was McIlroy that was carrying that group. If you're prioritizing off the tee game, we know he has that. As you mentioned, past winner here. His skill set should be able to show through on this course. So I like Rory the most. Schauffele, we know he gets up for these bigger events. Maybe has a little bit of a, stereotype against him right now because he hasn't won. But, I mean, he's been right there. 7 top 10s and 10 starts this year. Had a second at the Players, 8th at the Masters, 4 straight top 20s. So yeah, I like both of those guys a lot. And I like Clark too. I mean, he's maybe a little bit more hit or miss, but he finished runner up to Scheffler enough that maybe without Scheffler there, he's gonna win. But and part of the reason why I like getting exposure to the top guys is I don't like the 9Ks very much. And B, I do like some of the golfers at the bottom. And we do have a no cut format this week, which lends itself naturally to a little bit more stars and scrubs being viable. So I'm kind of with you on prioritizing the 10K plus golfers, the 3 of them, where you can. And then we move down to the 9Ks. That's just where Cantlay, one good finish. I want to see a little bit more out of him. Fleetwood, Homa, Hovland on a difficult course, where the chipping might come into play, and he's been in bad form. The only guy I really like in the 9Ks is Morikawa, because I've been playing him, for the better part of a month and a couple top 10s. I'm not going to hold the team performance. Kitayama kind of held them back a little bit. So I'm not worried about that. But we know the tee to green game is there with Morikawa. So he's really the only guy I like in the 9Ks, which again is why I like getting some exposure to the top. So where are you at with the 9Ks this week?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. A little bit of a dead range. I do like Homa a little bit. He tends to play these courses well. He won here in 2019, top 10 here last year as well. He's just one of those guys that doesn't have a weakness in his game. He's kind of like a slightly worse version of Xander right now. And then, yeah, you mentioned Cantlay's kind of been struggling. Morikawa has some good finishes, but the irons have been really bad, and he's talked about it a lot. He doesn't really know what's going on, so you could play that 2 ways. Like if he figures out the irons and the short game stays where it is, then he's probably going to win. And if not, and the short game goes away, then he might have a bad week. Hovland's got the short game issues. I think my favorite is probably Tigala. I still don't know what type of course fits him best, but he's been pretty solid all year. He's longer off the tee than you might expect, and very good scrambler putter. So I think he's interesting in 9,100.
Yeah, always tough to kind of figure out where to slot him in terms of what course type you want to play him on. But seems like people are just taking notice of the overall form, and he is probably going to get some ownership. But I will be underweight certainly on this range as a whole. Do you have a take on Cantlay?
I just haven't seen enough. I mean, he finally had a good week with the irons at the RBC, but he always plays well there. He always plays well at Pete Dye tracks. Outside of that, the approach game has been pretty spotty. So I probably won't be on Cantlay, especially because he hasn't played great here in the past.
Yeah, I am off him as well this week. All right, let's move down into the 8Ks. Quite a few names in here. We've got Matsuyama kind of leading off the group. Cameron Young will certainly get some attention if you're playing the bomber angle this week. Spieth down at 8,400. Some might notice that price tag. Alex Noren coming off a really strong finish last week. And if you just compare odds to salary, Justin Thomas is, like 28 or 30 to 1. A lot of these other guys in that same salary range are like 40 to 1 to win. So Thomas won the PGA Championship that was contested here in 2017. It was his first major win. So he does have some history here as well. What do you like out of that group of 8K golfers?
Yeah, Thomas is an interesting one. You mentioned the PGA Championship. He also, I think they went undefeated, him and Spieth, in the President's Cup until the singles matches. Last time we saw him, T5 at the Heritage, gained across the board. So there's a lot of reasons to like JT. It's certainly a good price point too. Like he could be the second or third man into your lineup and feel pretty good about it. I like Cam Young anytime you get him on a difficult course. So I was looking at it today. He's got 7 runner-up finishes in his career. He's won twice on the Korn Ferry Tour. I think he has 3 runner-ups in majors, and this is kind of a major-like course. So he's probably my favorite at 8,800. But, yeah, no issue with like Hideki. Fitzpatrick's been playing better since he found that weight in his driver. Siwoo Kim's been awesome, tee to green. No speed for me. Apparently he's dealing with some kind of injury, and he's kind of scared to hit the ground. That's kind of why his approach plays been wonky lately. He says he's fine. He says he feels fine hitting it off the tee, but just making contact with the ground, he's not feeling great about it. So that's obviously a big concern for me. And then in the bottom, I mean, you have Bomber Finau at low ownership, which is interesting. Yeah, Benny On, who's coming off of the top 5. He might be the longest driver in this field. Then Alex Noren's just top 20 machine. So I love the 8Ks. There's just like 8 guys that I could play this week.
Yeah, for sure. Lots of good options in here. And I like, if you're looking for a balanced build, you can really stack your lineup with guys from this group and feel pretty good about it. So I will definitely do that with some lineups this week. You can play a lineup full of 8K guys, all 6 of them. Literally, it works if you want. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad approach if that's what you feel comfortable with. So, all those guys that you mentioned are solid plays. I'll have some Thomas. I'll have some Noren. Finau's got some decent course history as well. And, even guys like Harmon and Henley can pop at times. So obviously probably got to exclude a guy or 2 from here. But prioritizing Thomas, Cam Young, I agree with your logic there. And then, one of maybe Benyon or Noren or Finau. I'll probably end up with 4 or 5 of these guys, at least in my primary pool this week. Because there's another little zone that I don't absolutely love right beneath that as we get into the 7Ks. But anything else on this 8K group for you?
Do you have a take on Henley? I mean, he's been pretty solid this year, just one of the shorter hitters, but he does make up for it with long iron plays.
Yeah, I'm probably out on this course, and because the range is so strong, he just kind of becomes one of the odd guys out. Like, I'd play him over Spieth, but that's not saying much for me, especially now that Spieth's in pretty poor form. So, yeah, I'm probably out on Henley this week, but that's more so because I like his neighbors in salary in each direction quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I don't think he'll get to this 13% that we have him at right now, but even at 10%, I just don't know if he can top 10 in this field.
Yeah.
But could be wrong.
All right, let's go ahead and move down into the 7Ks. Sung J M is listed in the field this week, obviously withdrew after winning on the Asian Tour the week prior. A little bit concerning because it was his first late withdrawal ever, and on top of the fact that he generally hasn't been playing very well. I didn't have any of them last week, so it didn't burn me, but that's going to keep ownership down this week for sure. You got Zalatoris in here, Corey Connors, Jason Day, Adam Scott, Shane Lowry, Sam Burns. So again, still names maybe that we're used to paying a little bit more for in this elevated event are all the way down into the 7Ks. I can't find a lot of guys I love in here. Connors I always like on ball striking tee to green tracks, but we really haven't seen any upside from him in a while. He doesn't have a top 10 all year yet. So I don't love playing Connors as a popular option. I always worry about the short game a little bit with Zalatoris. You got the Aussies in here, but I don't know. I just don't love a whole lot in the upper 7s. So sticking in the 8s will be what I do with a good majority of my lineups. What do you like? And anything sticking out here?
One play I really like, but yeah, you mentioned with Sungjae the withdrawal risk. You also have Zalatoris, who withdrew last week. Then you have Sam Burns, who's, I don't think he's had his baby yet. I could be wrong on that. I tried to look at it on Twitter before the show, and I couldn't find anything about the baby being born yet. So you have 3 guys with withdrawal risk, and anytime you have a no-cut event, those guys get even riskier, because if you get a 0, you're basically done for. So interested to see where they end up in terms of ownership. I think Zalatoris is interesting just because he loves those difficult courses, but there is a risk there. Although with the major coming up next week, I don't think he'd be in the field if his back was still hurting. But Adam Scott's my favorite, 7,700. He's been pretty solid all year. T30 last week wasn't great, but he gained 6.3 strokes ball striking. The short game was just off. I talked about it a little bit last week, where one week he gains putting and around the green. The next week he's gaining, ball striking. And then another week it's like driver putter. He just needs to put it all together. And he did finish 5th here last year. So he's my favorite at 7,700, but it looks like everyone else kind of likes him too.
Yeah, he's going to be pretty popular. No news on the Burns thing. So I didn't tag Burns for that reason. In a neutral setting, I would really like him here. But with that unknown, I did kind of put him as an other GPP option at the bottom of my article this week if you're checking out the premium stuff over at RotoGrinders. But there does seem to be some baby watch risk there with Burns. Lowry, I think, will get some attention because of the win with McIlroy, but he didn't play super well. I'm probably just going to forego this range a good amount, get some of those guys in the lower eights that we talked about, and then maybe skip down. I do like Jaeger at 7,500. Continues to chug along. Had that miscut at the Masters, but 2 top 20s again since then. Pendrith won last week, so yeah, maybe there's some concern about a hangover effect, but I really wouldn't let that bother me. I mean, this is a big money event. I think he's probably ready to go, given the status of this tournament. If everyone's avoiding him, I don't think he's a horrible play on a course that should emphasize the driver. Straka, I think, is really interesting as well. Has been playing a little bit better, so I like those guys in the mid to lower 7Ks more than some of the guys in the upper sevens. So Jaeger, possibly even Pendrith coming off a win, and Straka are 3 that I want to make sure that I highlight. Anybody else you like in the lower sevens?
Yeah, I like those calls. I kind of owe it to Pendrith to go back to him. Other guys, Denny McCarthy, not a good course fit, right? I mean, not a very long driver of the ball, but he's talked about it a lot. He loves difficult courses, and he finished T8 here last year. It's kind of the run that he went on. Yeah, he almost won Memorial. And I just think it's a kind of a sneaky spot for him at 7,300. He's probably one of the only shorter hitters that I'll be playing this week. Billy Horschel coming off the win in Corrales. We've seen him. He actually did win the Memorial when it was a designated or one of those names. They change it every year. But so he has some experience in good fields. Then you have Tom Hoagie, top 2 iron player in the field. And Adam Schenk just continues to play good golf. He's kind of like Taylor Moore, just a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, Schenk does keep playing well. I'll pass on Horschel, but he burns me more often than I care to admit. And so I'm sure he'll, hole about 3 chips from off the green in the short-sided or something. He'll just magically make 3 birdies that way and will tilt me into oblivion. Maybe bet him first round leader or something, and then that way it wouldn't tilt me so much. But otherwise that's I like the Schenk call. That's probably most of my interest in that range. Anybody else for you? Otherwise, we can just start honing in on the values.
I forgot to mention Harris English. I think he's only missed 1 cut all year. Been really solid. His ball striking's improved. He's 3 for 3 at this event with the 3rd place finish here last year. So 7,400, I like him quite a bit.
Yeah, I noticed his when I was looking through your first look article. I noticed his name kind of popping out there too. So good call. I'll probably keep him in my player pool as well. Always do tend to play a little bit of JT Poston. A little bit nervous about the course. I mean, he's obviously not a long hitter, but he has scored well on par 5s this year. And if he gets super hot with the short game, he can possibly pay off that 7K salary pretty easily in a no-cut event. All right, let's go ahead and move down into the values. And again, we'll do our usual snake draft at the end of the show on DraftKings. So if you're interested, stay tuned. Hopefully we can get enough people at least to do a 6-man and somebody can try to knock Noto off after last week. You mentioned Taylor Moore just a bit ago. I'm surprised that we only have him at 5% right now. Maybe that'll go up just a bit, but I'm not holding the team event against Taylor Moore. He made the cut at the RBC, though it wasn't his finest week. But if you exclude the team event, he hasn't missed a cut since last summer. And he's still only 6,700 and low ownership. So give me Taylor Moore this week. Jake Knapp is another name I think is somewhat interesting. He faded a bit on the weekend last week, but long hitter, super cheap at 6,500. So what do you like in the 6Ks this week?
Yeah, Taylor Moore, until he gives us reason not to play him, might as well keep playing him. I don't know why he's not more expensive, but we'll take it. T27 here last year. Glover, good ball striker, and he's been pretty good around the greens this year. So I'll play some of him at 67. But I do think there's a pretty steep drop off in talent. Like once we get into the sixes, I don't want a bunch of exposure to this range. You can maybe talk yourself into Cam Davis with the distance. Maybe talk yourself into Tom Kim. I guess he's a 7, but I mean, Tom Kim at the President's Cup, this is where he, became a star, really. Everyone was hitting it 20, 30 yards past him, and he was just sticking it inside of everybody, even though he was hitting his approach shots, from a lot longer. So maybe it's maybe you can, kindle some of those good feelings at this course and play well. But I don't like the sixes that much.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's some risk reward guys in here. Gary Woodland's in terrible form, but he's got some pretty good results here in the past. I'm probably not going there though, but I'll probably sprinkle Knapp a little bit. Certainly Taylor Moore, and then a lot of those guys in the lower 7s for sure. So, and that takes us through the field again. Only 69 golfers this week, so not a whole lot of depth at the bottom. For sure. So, all right, we will go ahead and start to get ready for our snake draft. I got to get my ducks in a row here. So, if you are interested in joining a snake draft on DraftKings, we always do that here at this point of the show. We will do a 6-man. That's already 3 of 6. There's a 6-man $5. Are you in one already?
I am not in one.
So I mean that would we almost can't do that with the viewers because that puts us at 5 of 6. Let's try a $10 6-man and see if we can fill it. If we can't fill it, we might have to go back to the $5. That's already got 3 people in it, but
okay.
Let's try 10. Kick it up a notch this week. $10 6-man. And we'll see if that fills. While we're waiting for that to fill, let's see. I'm going to take over the screen share here.
Link is in the chat.
Link is in the chat. All right. So this is our SimLabs tool over at RotoGrinders that is part of the premium package. Super easy to build lineups. I've showed this before a couple times, but just want to highlight, some of our metrics here. This is based on our projections. If you take optimal ownership versus projected ownership, who are in theory the best plays. So Shoffley is grading out really well in our projections, as you can see by the big green bar, 11% optimal above projected. Cantlay, I'm not huge on him, but the projections like him. Poston, who I just mentioned a few minutes ago, is another one that has significantly higher optimal than projected ownership. But you can put some inputs in here, how many lineups you want, whether you want large field, small field, single entry, how much variance you want in your lineups, exclude or lock certain players into your lineups, and then it'll flat out build them for you. So if I want to lock Rory McIlroy into my lineups, let's say I'm doing small field, 5 lineups, locking McIlroy in all of them, hit get lineups, and hopefully it should give me 5 lineups. There they are, and they've all got Rory in them. So SimLabs tool, check it out. You can sync them directly to the Lineup HQ tool at RotoGrinders, and our draft is full. How about that? So you can sync that directly to Lineup HQ. If I hit sync lineups, and then I load our Lineup HQ, and it says 5 of 5 lineups imported from SimLabs, and here they are on my screen with 100% Rory McIlroy. So that's how quick and easy that is every week to build your lineups in SimLabs if you want to use that. All right, now I'm going to change my tab. Noto and I are picking at the back end 5 and 6 this week. And we're just getting ready to start. So I got to switch my tab here. There's probably an easier way to do that than to stop screen sharing and then share the new tab, but we'll take the safe route. Well, producer Steve is happy with his Knicks. They last week around this time they were threatening to blow a series after blowing a 6-point lead in the final 30 seconds, and then blowing a lead in the next game. So I thought it was going to be worst case scenario with the Knicks, but they got it done, and now they are up 1-0 in the next round. So Steve is not happy with his Mets. I wonder who the Mets are playing tonight. Steve, refresh my memory. Who's the Mets playing tonight? I'm not sure. The Cardinals can't beat anybody right now. So the Cardinals just lost a home series to the White Sox, who had one road win on the year before last weekend, and they beat the Cardinals twice. So I'm not happy with my team right now either. I don't like drafting here. I'll tell you that. 6 is not fun this week.
Yeah, I kind of reached for Cam Young, but didn't feel great.
Go with Homa and Tigala. Got SimLabs up here. When Steve said he wasn't happy with the Mets, I had to go check the score real quick because I figured that was good news for me, which it is. 3 first-inning runs for the Cardinals against Steve's Mets. There's plenty of time for that to disintegrate. So I saw you saw my tweet last night about my boy running track. So he's our oldest, just randomly decided to join track this year with no previous experience. He's in 8th grade. Obviously, he's going against kids that have been training for a couple years now and maybe doing like cross country and stuff, but has improved his mile time all the way down to 6 minutes and 25 seconds in about 6 weeks. So
yeah, that's awesome.
I can tell you that I would not be able to do that. I probably couldn't have done that 30 years ago either. So yeah, I think that was good for his final meet. He went from 6:55 to 6:25. So I think that's got him motivated going into the summer.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. I didn't like running until I got older. So I'd have to, always like have to do it in sports.
Yeah. Yeah. I got into it for like a couple years. I ran some 5Ks and stuff. I mean, never, it was more of a run walk for me, but keeps you in shape. That's for sure. All right. I'll go Noren and Scott there. I'm okay with that. Just didn't like the 5 and 6 picks in the first round.
It's kind of ugly now. Jeez. I go Jaeger.
I almost did, but then I figured I'd take Scott. Probably should have saved Scott for you because you like him, and I wrote up Jaeger this week.
With the bench, I'll take the risk with Zalatoris. Why did Ludwig withdraw?
I didn't see that.
Oh, knee injury.
I mean, could just be a super precaution thing with a major next week.
Do you see Brooks won on Live?
They did. Won by comfortably, didn't he?
Yeah, by 4, I think. He always foreshadows his major wins.
Foreshadows the majors. I wondered where you're going with that. With the win somewhere. There you go. Go bet Brooks for next week.
Problem is the books are quick to react to it. I think he's like 12-1 or something.
Yeah, that's pretty steep. Gas Man taking up the whole clock to take Denny McCarthy.
Ooh. This is a bad range. It's like Spieth, Henley, Sungjae, Day.
Horschel's there for you.
Shane Lowry's a little interesting. We didn't talk about him. Putter
I just kind of mentioned him. I don't know. Rory basically carried him.
Yeah, he almost lost him.
I know. I watched the last 4 or 5 holes. Lowry was all over the place. Pendrith off the board. Spieth just no respect. None. He might not even get drafted.
Saying he's scared to hit iron shots. It's tough to.
It's tough to endorse.
He was the only guy that went undefeated at this course in the President's Cup, though.
You're up, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Horschel? Jeez. My boy, Horschel.
Baby risk. I'll go Burns in this format. Might need to use the bench again this week. We'll go with Hoagie. Burns. Still leaving Spieth on the board for somebody. You didn't have to take Horschel the round before because I certainly wasn't going to take him. You could have had him right now.
Yeah, I don't know who else. I guess I'll take Henley since I won't play him in DFS.
The old hedge.
Yeah, I don't like my team. This is why I kind of like taking 6 guys in the 8Ks. Your lineups look pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, and all those guys are gone now, except for Spieth. If Spieth is still on the board with the very last pick, I'll take him out of principle. I mean, it'd be down to choosing Spieth or, Adam Hadwin or somebody. Probably a little more
Spieth rolled in a putt, and I guess Speed Tracker wrote something like, "Oh, center of the cup, chills," and Brian Kirshner, I think he's been on the show before.
He has.
Was giving him a hard time.
It
was like a Thursday afternoon, 10-footer for birdie, chills.
To be fair, Brian doesn't have a lot of room to talk there. He gets pretty worked up.
Oh, that was a pretty good tweet.
All right, now I said I'd take him if he's the last guy there, but now I think it'd be more funny for him to not get picked at all. So
Ricky's coming off his first top 20 since his win.
It's a low bar. It's a low bar, my friend.
He's played in a lot of 70-man fields too, which isn't great. Yeah, I don't like anybody down here.
I'm gonna end up taking Poston over Spieth. Okay. Tom Kim.
I went Spieth.
Save me the decision. All right, that's it. Noto hates his team, so go out and run and get those guys because that's usually when they go well. Cam Young, Fleetwood, Connors, Zalatoris, Horschel, Henley, and Spieth. I've got Tigala, Homa, Noren, Scott, Burns, Hoagie, and Poston. And there is the full draft board for this week. And I think that's about it from my end. Anything else, Noto, before we take it for another week and PGA Championship coming up next week?
No, thanks everyone for watching. Looks like we had 1,700 live viewers, which is
awesome. Hit that like button, and usually I give people an out if they don't want to stay and watch the snake draft. I apologize. I didn't bid you folks adieu, though you can certainly come and go as you please. Nobody's forcing you, but hit the like button if you haven't already. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, get notifications whenever we go live, and of course, check us out over at RotoGrinders.com if you haven't already. Plenty of good premium content. You can get some good deals on that stuff now, too. We got a link in the description with more information on that. Plenty of sports going on with baseball in full swing, golf, of course, playoffs still going on for NBA and NHL. So check us out at rotogrinders.com. And thanks to our wonderful producer, Steve, for helping us out as usual. And thanks to Noto for joining me. I'm Justin, and we will see you next week, everybody. Take care.